be as long as the annual address of a week ago, okay? I'm going to talk about love, and I'm going to talk about love as a work. Love what was something we're called to do. The reading that Abby read, if you've gone to a wedding in the last 200 years, you've heard that reading read. And you've heard probably so many wonderful, saccharine, silly, emotional, warm, fuzzy, fluffy things said about love, which degrades the power of what we're supposed to be. But let me tell you a true story, okay? There is within the Roman Catholic Archdiocese of New York a norm. It is not written down anywhere, but it is as ironclad as any. And now that I have seen the wisdom for it, I totally get it. And that norm, that unwritten rule, is that no priest, under any circumstances, without any possibility of an exception or dispensation, is ever assigned to the parish where he grew up as a kid. Ever. All right? It is absolutely, totally unforgiven. Will not happen. Forbidden. And there's a reason for that. And the reason, as Thomas Wolfe said, is you can't go home again. You can't be adult in a place where you were a child. It's not possible. I share with you a story. I've mentioned this before. I say this with great love and respect and fondness for probably one of the dearest people who ever had a part of raising me, which was my grandma. I was ordained a priest for at least 45 or 50 seconds. Okay, the service was real over. And somewhere, wherever she was in St. Patrick's Cathedral, she got by the ushers, she got by the clergy, she got by the bishops. Okay? And Grandma was like, Camille, you towered over my grandma. So she was a very short person with a very large personality. And she elbowed her way to the front. And it's a tradition, a newly ordained priest, family members or friends, seek your first blessing. And very humbling, I tell you, I to this day, I've never felt so humble. My grandma knelt in front of me. And she said, would you give me your blessing? Now, theoretically, you're supposed to be the bishop first. Remember that in 2 weeks, okay? Grandma knelt down. I gave her a blessing. She got up and gave me that grandma look. And you who are grandmas, you know what I'm talking about. And she looked at me and she said, okay, I did it. Now, don't ever expect me to call you father. I changed your diapers. And that is an absolute true story, which I say with a lot of love. Luke gives us a snapshot moment as if he had a camera, and he captures this moment of a very popular preacher who goes back home and encounters the reality that no matter how important your message may be, no matter how important you are, no matter how much you are going to challenge people to live a true, loving life, you are not going to be accepted unless you say the things that people want to hear. So filled with the power of the Spirit, he walks back to his hometown with probably an entourage of the first group following him, because this is the beginning of his ministry. And he's given the scroll of the prophet Isaiah. And remember, ancient scrolls don't have chapters and verses. Those are the inventions of the modern publishers. So he has to know exactly where to start and where to end. And he reads that powerful, beautiful section from the prophet Isaiah about who the servant of God is and what the prophet that Israel was promised was meant to be. And he speaks to them with incredible love and says, everything you've been hoping for, everything you seek, I am it. I am he. And people, they looked at him, and again, use a phrase that my grandma used to use, and not a nice one. She used to say, they saw him and they looked at him and said, he thinks who he is. Okay, you get it. Okay. They are angry at him because his message is so different. It's not what they expected. I want you to hear what the message is because I want you to hear what's expected of us as followers. To be the people, as Paul wrote to the people of Christians of Corinth, to be people of love. And what does that mean? It means we take the good news of Jesus Christ and we bring it to anyone and everyone. All right? That's good news. Let her go. Okay? She is God's child. From the very beginning, his news was not going to be oppressive. It was good. It will be a social gospel. It's concerned with the have-nots around us, the people we don't see, the blind, the poor, the oppressed, the imprisoned. It is a word based on grace. If I've said this once, I've said this every year in confirmation classes, and I say this with love, but I also say it as I'm yelling at them. There is nothing you can do to earn God's love because you don't have to. There's nothing you can do to make God love you any less, and there's nothing you can do to make God love you any more. God is love. And that is a gift given to us. And the gospel is grace, not law. You can't impress God by what you do, and thankfully you don't have to do that. And this good news is inclusive. We didn't invent the notion of inclusive in the 21st century. It is meant for all. And that was scandalous. There was an old Jewish proverb. I know this only because Rabbi Zimmit, who was a mentor of mine, who was a survivor of one of the concentration camps, I knew him when I was a very young priest. And he said this not with a lot of pride. He said there was an old proverb the rabbis once taught. Why did God create Gentiles? And the answer was, and I kid you not, to collect them like hay and burn them so hell could be hotter. That was the proverb. That was the attitude. And that's the attitude Jesus went up against. Good news for all. No one is an outsider. The hopes, the promises, the dreams of the people of the covenant are fulfilled in him. And his message is a call to ministry, to love and service. And if you use that four-letter word love, know what you're getting into. It means being patient and kind and never overbearing and never rude and all those things that Abby read so beautifully, and I saw all the bobblehead dolls going up and down because we've heard this a zillion times, but it's not enough to hear it. It's got to get in, and it's got to be lived. So ask yourself the really important question. You know, we as a parish, we outreach to many different groups, and we do it quite well. We are aware of the suffering of others, as a group, as a community. And we have a right to be proud. But do I do it as an individual? Do I do it when it's inconvenient for me? You know, the heading of this year, the mantra, what is God calling me to do? What is God calling us to do is a very safe question. What is God calling me to do? That's far more difficult and challenging. God is calling me to love. He's calling us to live lives filled with the Spirit that was given to us at our baptism. Face the task of bringing Christ's grace and power into the world, and proclaim that this is a favorable time, and not just be a parish or a community, but truly be the living body of Christ in Lewisboro. Let this local community know who we are and why we are, because we are believers in Jesus Christ. In this home, you can return. This is a home you can go back to, because all are welcome. Jesus found that people will only love you as much as you give them the words they want to hear. I'm challenging you to live his words no matter how unpopular they are, because that's what he expects of us, because that is what love calls us to do. So the living, risen Christ continues to call us. Listen to his word. Be filled with that same Spirit. Bring the good news to others. Let's be the community that prays and sings and lives and loves as the Lord has called us. Because unless we do that, we are not church. Amen.
Amen.